Hi everyone, this is the second half of the 2022 December Invitational. But for this half, we only had two games. Well, I only had two games because one of my opponents couldn't make one of the rounds. So I had one win and one loss in the second half. And the first game I played was my win against Cheng Dai. And we played a Sicilian where I played knight c3 instead of the usual knight f3. And we got into this position, which was pretty much of fury up until this point where he played queen d7. So I think he wanted to stop me from playing queen h4 with my attack, because after queen h4 there's queen g4. But I've analyzed this and this is still pretty good for me if I just retreat my queen. I played h3 here because I really wanted to go on with my attack. But the engines, they seem to prefer bishop d2. The idea is to defend the knight and go for an attack like this with a4 and b3. So the engines preferred this move instead. But my move is also fine. And after h3, bishop b7, queen h4, my attack sort of gets going. Against something like h6, which sort of stops knight g5, I get to play like e5, knight d5, f5, and there's a massive attack here. So he plays rook a d8, and I get to play f5, opening up the bishop. Opening up the bishop like this. I was expecting something like knight e8 after I played f5, in which case I would have played knight g5. And after h5, I wasn't really sure what the best continuation was here, because he stopped my queen from infiltrating his position. So I was probably going to play f takes, g takes, rook takes, bishop takes, and I wasn't sure what the best continuation here is, but the engines think bishop e3 wins. And the idea is to sort of bring the rook over, and followed by e5, and then queen e4, attacking g6. So maybe I would have worked something similar out during the game. h6 isn't possible here because I get to just take, and now I'm also attacking this pawn. So yeah, I was expecting knight e8, but he just took my pawn, and there's no way that this is good because I get to play bishop h6. And these are like pretty common ideas in the Grand Prix attack I saw in the Sicilian. So bishop h6, knight e8 defends the bishop. I took the pawn here, and yeah, f6 seems to keep everything together. So f6, rook e1, and then rook f7, and everything's sort of defended well. But this is still a lot better for me. There are just a lot of weaknesses in Black's position. Like, Black's sort of stuck defending this section of the board. I have this half-open file, and maybe I could even put something on e6. I could also try and move my knight over, and this is actually what happened in my game. I moved my knight over to h5. Another interesting move was knight d6. Bishop takes, knight e5, and I end up like an exchange up in this line. So yeah, I didn't actually look at knight d6 during my game though. But he played bishop takes h6, queen takes f6. So it's similar to like the line without bishop takes. If he left the bishops on, it would be a bit better. At least according to the engines. Rook f7, rook e4, so bring my rook over. Rook g7 sort of stops me from bringing my rook over. And then I made a mistake with knight h4. So the idea behind this move was to double my rooks on the fourth rank. So I could double and then play rook g4. And after the rooks are swapped off, I put another rook on g4, pinning whatever piece is here to the king. So that was the idea. But rook fe1 is actually a better move. I just didn't really see an idea that I'll show you later on. So rook fe1, knight d6. There's queen takes g7, king takes. So I did see this line, but the line I didn't see involved. But this was a better line than what I played. So after knight h4, the line I didn't see was knight d6, and I thought rook a4 was better for me. Like if he plays c4 or anything, I get to take on a7, and this rook looks pretty strong here. At least I thought it was strong. But then there was this idea of rook g5, threatening knight f7. So I didn't really see rook g5 ideas at all. And it comes back again later, but my opponent also didn't see this idea. After rook g5, knight e4 is pretty forced. Knight f7. And the idea here isn't to take the rook, but to sack the queen like this. Queen takes, e takes, and now there's a knight for black's queen. So after king g7, I'm down like a piece for 3 pawns, but it's a pretty bad position for me because my pawns are pretty weak as well, especially this one. So, and usually the pace is just better than the 3 pawns anyway. So I missed this idea of bishop g5. My opponent plays c4, and I just get to take. His idea was to free up this bishop. But again, knight d6 works. The same idea with rook g5 and then knight f7. So rook a4, knight g5. And then I would need to play rook g4 here to stop knight f7. And because I've already like won this pawn, so it's a better version compared to just playing knight d6 a move ago. But yeah, he plays c5 and I get to put my rook on f4 and I get to double up my rooks here. So e5, rook g4, and I got what I wanted. And this was just winning for me. I didn't want to trade rooks here, so I just moved back. And then I just had to slowly maneuver my knight around. And it took a bit of time. After rook g4, I was actually expecting this move e4 check. I was going to play knight f3, and this doesn't work because yeah, I was going to play rook g3 here and go for this, which is winning. But an even stronger move is after e3 to play g3, because after queen e5 in this line, I could play knight e6, e2, and then there's going to be mate after rook takes, queen takes. And if I had played rook g3 like I was planning on playing, I wouldn't be able to play knight a6 here, because after e2, the rook is pinned, so I can't play rook takes. So I was going to play knight h5 instead and win this way. But yeah, I just didn't really want to weaken my king too much with g3. But there wasn't really anything to be worried about. So rook f7, knight g3, this happens, and he makes one last mistake with bishop d5, because now I have this tactic. Rook takes, knight takes, check. The king could only really come to f7. If king h8, there's knight g6, and then this. And I get to win the bishop anyway. So king f7, and the rest is just winning. I decided to trade queens here because it looked like the easiest win. I just have the 2 knights and 1 passed pawn that's sort of protected as well. This pawn will probably fall off later on as well, and I could create these passed pawns by also pushing my h pawn, which is what happens in the game. But the engine prefers just taking off all the pawns, like something like this. But it's a bit. I found this a bit risky. I just wanted to trade queens for the easy win. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I got 2 passed pawns, and I got to win like this. So that was my first game. The second game I lost against Tejas, so I beat him in the first half of the round robin. I drew with Cheng Dai in the first half of the round robin. But then this time I beat Chen and Tejas beat me. So it was a French. I was playing black, and he played a line I really hate playing against, which is this line with castles. And then I probably should start playing castles here, but I just don't really like the position after this. Um, like technically, I think it's fine for black, but black's just always sort of worse. But yeah, this line's not that good for black as well. Because this is like the line I'm kind of scared of. So there's also bishop g5, which is the main move, and I'm not worried about this at all. The idea is to maneuver the bishop to g3 to try and swap the bishops off, but then knight h5 works here, and there's a lot more theory here, and yeah, it's fine for black. Um, it's like I don't really have a problem playing against this, but it's just a bit annoying. So maybe I'll move to this line instead. But even this game, I didn't really lose out of the opening. Bishop e3, bishop d7. So I've seen all of this before. And my idea is just to maneuver my bishop over. So because if the bishop is on d7, sort of interferes with the queen. So I want the bishop to come here, then play king h8, and then bishop g8, and one day push e5, and my bishop will be already defending d5. But it's just one of those openings where I'm just a bit worse. Rook c1 gets played, and h6 is most popular here, but it doesn't really have a good win rate after white just takes here. And a6 might be the best move. Might also be what I try next time if this happens again. But after rook c1, king h8, and I get to move my bishop to g8. So I felt like this was alright for me now. b4, a6. And best for white here is probably like knight g3. But it's also like kind of hard to find a good plan for white here. But white's just better because black's really passive. Oh no, this doesn't actually work. I get to just take. So yeah, I'm not sure what white could come up with here, and I'd need to analyze this position more. But my opponent played knight f3, and after knight f3, I played knight h5 here. I also considered this move e5, but it doesn't really work. After d takes, bishop takes, there's knight e d4, and white's position is becoming really active. And yet there's this really annoying pin on my queen, and these bishops will be stronger than what I have. This is probably the best move, just queen e7. Like, it's kind of calm, but I didn't really have an idea after something like this, because I'm just never able to push my e5 pawn. So it's again just a really passive position for me. What I played was alright. The plan was to go knight f4. Knight e5 stops it, and it is white's best move. Bishop takes, d takes, queen takes, and here I was expecting g4, but this actually loses for white, so I was hoping my opponent plays this. I get to play d4 here, and after d4 there's this interesting line with bishop d2, rook sack on f2 threatening queen h2 mate, and king takes loses after queen h2 check, king f1, and rook f8. And I didn't really calculate this line out fully, but it's clear that my attack is strong enough after takes, and just more takes, push, and it's just really hard for white to defend. I also have this move coming, if I want to. So it seemed winning. So like a more realistic line after g4 d4 would be knight takes d4. I thought I was winning here as well after knight takes, but I didn't see this idea of rook c5. So rook c5, attacking the queen. I need to go knight f3, and then queen takes c5, b takes, rook takes, and I end up an exchange up. But this is only slightly better for me because the two bishops are just really strong, and my bishop is still kind of useless. I'll need to like use up some time. I'm activating this guy. Bishop takes a6. I didn't look at. I didn't see this move at all, and the engines really like this move at the start. But I get to play rook takes a6 here, bishop c5, attacking the rook. I can't just defend the rook like this. So now I have two pieces for the rook. But there's this tactic knight g3, and it works quite well for white. The queen's on, and then there's two pieces attacking my knight. So I would be forced to play rook f7 here to move out of the attack. Now b5 forks the knight and the rook. Rook a8, knight g3, so same idea as before. Queen b2 is necessary here, and the idea is after b takes, there's knight takes, and white can't play rook b1 because of queen c3 takes, rook takes, rook takes, queen takes c5, and this happens to pin the pawn to the king, so white can't play f takes g3. But this was a really confusing line that I didn't really look at all. So hopefully next time I'll see more lines like this. But yeah, f takes, b takes, and I'm doing fine here. So bishop c5 gets played, and I just decided to sack the rook. And yeah, it is the best move here. Not sure why chess.com doesn't like it that much. Bishop takes, rook f1. I also looked at bishop takes a6, and then I have knight e5, rook takes b7, rook f3, and this seemed quite good for me. I get to take stuff like that later, and there's just this attack going on that seems quite hard for white to stop. There's also knight f3 check, but it isn't as good if I just take the rook like this, because I am down a pawn, and there are two pass pawns on this side of the board. So my one pawn can't really compete with these two. So that's also, I think, why he played rook f1. So now knight e5 doesn't work as well. And at this point, I should still play knight e5. But I couldn't really find a good follow-up after king h1. But knight takes d3 and then e5. And yeah, it's fine for me. But I couldn't really come up with much here. I thought this was just okay for me. So I went for e5 instead. And I actually thought that I calculated this move mainly. And I thought it was fine for me after knight d8. So after playing e5, I can't play knight e5 anymore. But I was planning on playing knight d8, bishop b5, d4, and activating this bishop. But yeah, white could play f4 here, and it's just worse for me. But my opponent plays b5, a takes, bishop takes, d4, and now this is pretty equal. I just had to not really do anything. Play queen g6, threatening d4. I mean d3, and yeah, something like this would happen, and this is drawn because the pawns are just really powerful. Instead, I thought I could swap the knights off and start pushing my pawns forward. I didn't really see what happened next. So yeah, I didn't really calculate all this out fully. Rook f4 is probably best here, but I didn't really work out what to do after queen d5. Like, I thought I was just losing here. There are also a lot of mate threats against my king. So I just went for this move, which is a bit passive. Rook f7, f4, and then I played queen c5. The idea is to play d3 with check, king h1, rook takes d2, and opponent plays e6 here, queen g6, and I actually missed queen d5 here. This is just lost because white gets to take this pawn pretty easily. But queen f3, and I had like a small chance of coming back with queen takes e6 check here. Takes, rook d1, but I think this is still lost. I played g6 because I missed another pretty simple move here. Just rook f7, pawn defends a rook, and then rook d7, and I lose my pawn. And after losing that pawn, it was pretty much over. so I resigned here. But yeah, these are my last games in the tournament. Despite this loss, I think I still come first overall. So it was a pretty good tournament.